I'm like such a firm believer that it's almost in our nature to want to help other people.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like, it's why, I tell people all the time, never be scared to reach out to people on LinkedIn. Never be scared to walk up and like make that cold intro, make that cold connection. So traditionally, if you genuinely show interest in what someone is going to say, they're not going to ignore you.
What is your opinion / advice on when to know to keep going versus something that isn't going to work out and you should switch to a different idea or a different project?
Ultimately, you're not special. Like, there are other people that are working hard to do the exact same thing. So it's your choice. Like, if you really want to accomplish the things you want to accomplish, like, you have to keep going. It's not negotiable. If you are doing average things and you have an average schedule, you are going to have an average output. Crazy things lead to crazy results.
Oh yeah.
Average things lead to average results. Ultimately, it just comes down to how you want to spend your time. You can't expect other people to be confident in you if you're not confident in yourself. If there's one piece of advice I would give people, it's to
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Treadmill Talks. Today I got my boy JJ Paulsenn with me, and dude, this is double digits episode number 10.
let's go.
Yeah.
That's sick.
How are you, man?
Sick. I'm good. Just trying to get everything out of the way so I can grind out finals and then head into summer.
Yeah, no.
I'm sure you
It's about to be a
understand.
grind, bro.
Yeah.
Final season's about to be a grind.
It always is.
But yeah, JJ, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the viewers.
For sure, yeah. So, like you said, my name is JJ Paulsenn, current student here at UF, and right now I am the co-founder of a startup called Perch. Perch is a tech company in the parking industry. It's essentially a marketplace that lets businesses list available spots that they have. Businesses located around like stadiums and event venues, they can list available spots they have for people who are attending those events to reserve in advance.
That's sick. So I want to dive into the whole business mindset and the projects you're working on. But first, I want to start out by a little bit of background. It's like, what got you in this whole entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah.
Like, what did you know you want to do that from the beginning, or did something like flip a switch? How did that happen?
No, it's a great question. So initially, my whole life, I actually thought I wanted to be a baseball player.
Okay.
I played baseball pretty much up until about a year and a half ago. I played for a year and a half in college down in St. Petersburg at a school called Eckerd College. And just, it didn't work out. My junior year of high school, I suffered an injury. I got in a car accident and had a stress fracture in one of my vertebrae, which set me back a little bit. And ultimately, the smartest decision should have been just go straight to school, like go to a school like UF and, figure out what I want to do in the real world. But being a 17-year-old kid, I had zero idea what I wanted to do. So ultimately, that year and a half was more of like a buffer, so to say, for me to figure that out. And I've always had like a knack for like problem solving. I've always loved looking at different types of problems and finding a way to solve them. So when I transferred up here being Gainesville, from my old school, I thought like, all right, I'm not playing baseball anymore, so I have so much of my time back, because baseball was like a 5 a.m. to like 10 p.m. commitment every single day.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, I have so much time. What am I going to do with it? So growing up, both my parents, they went here, they were Gators. So I've always recognized like parking at football games was a huge problem. And then just dove in, did more research, realized that it was a very similar problem around a lot of event venues, and realized that there could be a solution built for it. So ultimately, that's when I teamed up with my current co-founder. His name's Dustin, and we built the product. So it wasn't initially what I thought I wanted to do in life, but after, I pivoted away from baseball, that's kind of where my passions led me.
So let me ask you this. After college, after we're done, we graduate, what does your future look like? What are your goals?
So ultimately, I would love to always be my own boss.
Yeah.
Right now, with the company I've been working to build, I'm hoping that is going to be able to sustain me at least for a couple years to either build something bigger or figure out like what those specific next steps are. But I've never really been interested in going through like I hate like this wording, but like the traditional corporate route.
Yeah. Magnified.
Yeah, I just feel like it's very similar to what college is nowadays, which is essentially just like a machine. There's zero influx for like creativity and pretty much the things that I think make us as individuals unique.
Right.
I think it's very constraining. So I want to be able to continue to venture on my own path and ultimately pave what I want to do. So to specifically answer your question, I'm not 100% sure, but it's something I'm confident that I'm going to be able to figure out, especially with this current venture, going to be able to sustain me.
Yeah. So what are because obviously in any business you start up,
yeah,
you're going to face failures, you're going to face
sure.
challenges. So actually, what were some of those challenges that you faced in your business?
Yeah.
And how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so it was honestly just getting, the biggest challenge at the start was I sucked at selling. Like I was really bad at articulating what was in my mind.
Yeah.
Like I knew that what the product I had, it's a service, not a product. I knew the service I had provided a lot of value to like business owners, but I didn't know how to get that out in words. Like I kind of just assumed that they should already know what I'm talking about and kept it like super broad. So that was the initial challenge. The second challenge is that, I had to find a way for things in my mind to make sense to other people. So not just, certain processes and certain ways that we were building out like the platform. It made sense in my mind because I was actively being part of building it, but I was realizing very quickly it didn't make sense in other people's minds. So I wouldn't necessarily even say challenges. Just the biggest hurdle at the start was we had to constantly listen to feedback. Like we were listening to feedback from every single person who used our service, and we were just learning how do we improve. And then from there, continue to build improvements. But especially in the startup industry, I would say there's always challenges that you're facing every single day.
Right.
Like right now we face challenges. 6 months ago we faced challenges, and 6 months from now we're going to face challenges. So it's more about your ability to respond and adapt when those challenges, like little daily challenges, occur in order to just keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like you said it, there's always going to be challenges, and that goes back to what you were saying about how you like that problem solving. And you don't tend to find that as often in the corporate traditional jobs, because it's more of like you kind of get told what to do to a certain point.
For
and
sure.
It's like, okay, I kind of have to figure out what they want me to do versus I'm in my own box and I have to figure out where I should go.
Yeah.
And then how do I get there?
Yeah.
So I agree with the whole aspect of you have to like basically take charge of what you want to do. But I want you to take me all the way back to post high school, post baseball. So how did you start your startup?
Oh, okay. So transferring up to UF, like I said, I always knew that there was that parking issue. And I thought, this could be a market that I could potentially find a gap in and try to fill that gap. And ultimately, first, I was super, super naive. I was like, okay, I can just help build another like anytime parking platform. So like another like Passport Parking or like Park Mobile.
Yeah.
I learned really quick, those companies don't work unless you have like 7 to 8 figures of venture funding.
Oh, wow.
And pretty much just like insane connections.
Yeah.
So I realized that we needed to niche down as much as possible and find like a specific customer. So that changed to sports because, you know, I used to play baseball, so I'm very passionate about sports. And then that niched down to college sports because I'm a current college student, which then niched all the way down to a Florida Gator football fan. Because this past season was the first season that we launched, and we just specifically launched in Gainesville. And if you actually went on our site, it was like completely tailored toward UF.
Oh, nice.
Like it was like, we weren't, you know, a broad parking platform. We were like UF football parking. So building off that, we just really started diving into customer outreach. So it was a lot of, you know, trying to get on local news stations, you know, reaching out to fans and running just like different like little marketing campaigns that ultimately, you know, let us get traction. The most important thing, at least in our eyes as we were building it, was that we created a really good experience for parents because that was our target customer. Like, we weren't targeting students, we were targeting their parents. And parents ultimately just want things to be super, super easy.
Yeah.
So because, you know, of that fact, as we were building it, you know, we wanted it to be as easy as possible. That was kind of how we got off the ground, was just building a super intuitive, easy to use platform, found people that liked it, and then as people liked it, we just continued to expand off of it based off, you know, what they wanted to see. So like I would personally text people that booked through us.
Right.
Be like, hey, I'm JJ, I'm one of the owners of Perch. You know, thank you so much for booking through us. Just out of curiosity, is there anything that you wish was in the booking process that isn't right now? So it was very much just interactive and like listening to the feedback, kind of how I said earlier.
And did you get a ton of feedback that was actually helpful?
Yeah. I mean, people, especially if you show that initiative, I'm like such a firm believer that it's almost in our nature to want to help other people.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like, it's why, you know, I tell people all the time, never be scared to reach out to people on LinkedIn. Never be scared to walk up and like make that cold intro, make that cold connection. So traditionally, if you genuinely show interest in what someone is going to say, they're not going to ignore you. So we got a ton of feedback just because I reached out and personally thanked them and said, hey, what do you think? So yeah.
And I feel like that's like a key point right there that we should stop and like think about a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's the customer side where it's you want to gain their support / show like, oh, they actually care. They don't want just my money. Like they actually care about me. But then you can flip it and look at it from where if you're reaching out to someone that, let's say, you want to have as your mentor or someone that you want to learn from, because I feel like a lot of people, especially like today, will be scared.
Yeah.
Or they'll be like, oh, there's no way.
They are.
But it's like, who, like, you don't know that. And let's say they say no. Then it's like, okay, who cares?
Yeah.
They said no. I'm sure that there's a ton of other people that I've heard / spoken up to that they have said, oh, let's say the person I'm working with right now, all they did was just they sent out a text or a DM, and just from that DM, they started working together. And now they're like, they've learned a lot more. They've gained a lot more knowledge, all from just sending an email, sending a text.
Yeah, I can't agree anymore. Actually, a funny story on that. Me and my co-founder met because I just didn't stop reaching out to him until he responded. Because when I initially, so I had the idea of what Perch is right now, and I pitched it to one of my buddies.
Okay.
He's not my co-founder, just like one of my good friends. And he was like, "That's really cool. I actually think there's a student at UF right now that's kind of doing something like that." So I was like, "Great! If there's a student that's already here that's interested in doing this, like, why would I not try to connect with them and just see if he wants to team up?" So at that point, I had like no LinkedIn profile. Like I was like the gray circle that you see at the start, and I had zero information. And I was just reaching out to them as this ghost, saying like, "Hey, like if you have 10 minutes, I'd love to hop on a call and like learn more about Perch." And I think it took like 3 LinkedIn messages and 2 emails for him to finally respond. And I think it was more like, here, I can pull up his response right now.
Talk about persistency.
Yeah, I think it was more of like all right, I'll give you 10 minutes so you stop bothering me type response. But that persistence is like ultimately what let us work together. And I say all the time, we would never be where we're at right now if he wasn't who my business partner is. Because he handles all of our development. I sent him that and he didn't respond initially. And then it took me emailing him a couple times. And then finally he's like, yeah.
To the viewers / listeners, the first message is like a paragraph long message.
Oh yeah.
No response. Second message is like another follow-up. No response.
No,
then the third message.
It's like a super formal, "My name is JJ Paulsenn. I hope you are well." Like crazy. But that persistence is like ultimately what allowed us to be where we're at today. He says all the time, like jokingly in meetings, like, "Thank God you didn't leave me alone."
Yeah.
Right? Because we just wouldn't be here. And it's the same with people, because I would say him and I were relatively on the same level. It's the same if you want to reach out to people who are potentially above you and they're at a level that like you want to get to.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people that have found success in life, they want to share their knowledge with people who are also reaching for similar success. And typically the biggest hindrance in anyone growing their network and really doing anything is just they don't take that first step. And for me, that first step was reaching out to this dude on LinkedIn. Not dude, sorry, my co-founder. For other people, it may look different. Like a lot of people now, the internship market is so saturated and so tough. That first step for them could be just randomly sending that recruiter a LinkedIn message and seeing if they respond. Like we've gotten help from some insane people. Like we've talked to one of the co-founders of Passport Parking, like numerous like C-suites within, 8 and 9 figure parking companies. And it's literally just been from, taking that initial step of like, hey, I'm a current student. I'm going to guess most of the people listening to this are going to be current students. That is like such a key factor in getting that response is, hey, like my name is JJ Paulsenn. I'm a student at the University of Florida. I'm interested in X, whatever it is you're interested in. It's ultimately going to be the reason, why you're reaching out to them. But I'm interested in X. If you have 10 minutes, I would love to hop on a call and learn a little bit from you. Most people are going to say yes. And if they don't say yes, they're not someone you want to network with.
And I feel like, let's say, even if they don't say yes, they're not going to be mean about it.
No.
They're going to be nice because, like you said, like the people who actually make it to the top, they want to share that success with others.
Yeah.
Because, like, dude, just imagine being at the top and then, like, having someone to, like, mentee, like, someone be your mentee, where it's, like, you can help. And then, because at that point, like, once you're at the top, you get joy from seeing other people succeed. And it
Yeah.
goes back to the aspect of you saying we want to, like, we have it in our nature to want to help others.
Yeah.
But then I want to ask you something. What is your opinion / advice on when to know to keep going versus something that isn't going to work out and you should switch to a different idea or a different project?
Like in terms of starting a business?
Whether it's starting a business, let's say like you're persistent and
Or you're just saying in anything?
in general, yeah. I feel like, yeah, like in general, I mean, we could do it business aspect and in general aspect.
Okay.
Because I feel like sometimes people are going to try to make a business work so hard or make an idea work so hard that they invest so much energy and time and money, but then at the end of the, like, it's just not meant to be or it just won't work out.
Yeah.
So how do you know to just flip and move on to something else to put in that energy and time and investment?
You know, it's a great question, and the honest answer is you don't. The honest answer is ultimately that's just a question that you have to decide for yourself. Like Airbnb is like a perfect example. They failed so many times. Like every single Fortune 500 company has failed so many times. And the people that were in that room, like on the ground floor that were part of building those companies, they just decided, no, like this isn't it. They're running that shit back.
Yeah.
Like they're like, no, this is not the end.
Yeah.
And there's been plenty of companies that have been in those same positions and decided, no, this is not the end. And then they ended up in hundreds of $1,000s worth of debt and go bankrupt. So it really comes down to like every situation is different. So that's the business side. So that's like a really tough question to answer because theoretically, especially in today's world, because of how prominent like venture capital is and how, I'm not going to say easy it is to get investments because it is not easy to get investments in today's like venture capital world. But theoretically, if you can keep getting money from outside sources, there's never a point that you would need to stop. So the business side is tough. In general, though, I would say listen to your gut. You know, like if you're doing something and it's providing you zero positive value, it's not making you happy, you're not learning from it, you're not getting anything at all from it, I would recommend probably pivoting to do something else. You know, like when I started school at Eckerd when I was playing baseball, my first major was biology because I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon.
Okay.
Like I was super interested in how the body worked, how the body moved, and I still am. But I was taking those classes and I was like talking to people who have gone through the route, and I was just like, I feel like I'm gonna hate that. Like I feel like I'm gonna spend those 8 to 10 years basically in school / residency / all that stuff regretting it. So I shifted toward like, I started as an international business major when I was still there.
Okay.
But then when I came here, I switched to economics because they didn't have international business. So I would say really listen to your passions and like your interests, because if you listen to what you're passionate in, if you pursue what you're passionate in and listen to what your gut and your heart and your brain are telling you, you're never going to be in a situation where you're doing something that isn't providing you value. So I would say for, general sense, you should stop if you're getting nothing out of it.
Okay.
But I think if you follow kind of your passions and interests, it's very rare that you're going to do something that you get absolutely nothing out of it. Because even if you do something that doesn't work, right, you still learn from it. It's like any, I'll use this example because, it's in college, so a lot of people go in and out of relationships. It's like any relationship that doesn't work out. You can look at it and be like, damn, that was a waste of time.
Yeah.
Because I dated her for, I don't know, a year, and it didn't work out, right? Or you can look at it as, yeah, it didn't work out, but I still got value from it because you learn a lot of stuff that you're going to carry with you to potentially make future relationships better.
I agree.
Yeah, that was like a very long-winded answer, but.
No, but it's good because it's like, it's something that needs to be conveyed. And I want to bounce back off of a couple points you said. One thing about the passions. So obviously I'm passionate about social media. I've been making content.
Right.
And it's been a couple years now. Yes, I've been on and off, but at the same time, I also haven't gotten the biggest presence.
Right.
But because I've been so passionate about it, I've still gained a lot of benefits. And one of the easiest things that comes to mind is the fact that I've met so many people.
Yep.
Inside the gym, but also outside the gym because of my content in the gym.
Right.
And me meeting those people has taught me so much about myself and about like businesses, about other ideas that I would have never even like thought to dive into.
Yeah.
And so it might not, I guess what I'm trying to say is you might not learn the lesson that you think you're going to learn from the idea that you're pursuing.
Yeah.
But you're going to learn other information and knowledge that you never even thought about.
Yeah.
Once you just pursue your passion. And
100%.
I feel like the drive that you have to pursue your passions is going to be so much higher compared to the drive of you pursuing something just because you have to do it.
Totally. And you're going to be so much happier, like so much happier pursuing the things that you're actually interested in rather than forcing yourself through tasks that at the end of the day you don't want to do. Like you're going to hate yourself for forcing yourself through all of those things. So while, to your point, because obviously we've known each other for like a little bit now, probably around a year, and watching you like grow as a content creator, it's like your stuff gets better. First of all, like your output improves. As your output improves, it gives you more confidence.
Yeah.
Like especially speaking from my accord, from day one, from starting the company to now, it's like that confidence makes a huge difference, especially in the networking aspect.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be so much more confident to reach out to people and be like, hey, like, I know that I'm worth your time. Like, I know that I've done enough to where you should take 10 minutes and talk to me. Like if I'll use like Luke as an example. A year ago, you might have been like a little more hesitant to reach out to him just because you were still in the early stages. Whereas like now, you're putting good shit out. Like you're putting stuff that someone that he could hire would put out. So it's like, you're gonna want to continue to grow more when you're pursuing something that you are passionate about and like.
Oh yeah.
Rather than, you're forcing yourself through med school or like you're forcing yourself to do whatever it may be. It's just ultimately going to be a waste of time. Whereas following your passions, like you're never going to waste your time.
Yeah. To give a little bit of a background to the viewers, I met Luke through JJ, and Luke is a founder of a media agency here in Gainesville. It's honestly probably the biggest media agency in Gainesville, and maybe in North Florida, honestly. Super chill guy, super humble, and I look to him as a mentor because I'm also trying to start my own media agency, and there's so much that I didn't even know to know before I started talking to Luke, and he's opened up so many ideas in my head, and I always go to him with like projects in my head, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this, blah blah blah. And I would have never met him if I didn't met JJ, because JJ introduced me to Luke. And so I want to dive into networking a little bit.
Luke, come on the show.
Yeah, Luke, come on, bro, I need you. We're trying to set something up, actually.
Yeah.
That'll be a fire episode.
I was just doing that for
Stay
fun,
tuned.
yeah.
But talking about networking, what is some advice that you would give someone who wants to network, wants to meet new people, and knows that they're not in the best circle, but they don't know how to get out of it, or they don't have anyone to turn to?
Yeah.
So what is some advice you would give to that
Like,
person?
circle is in friends?
I want to say both, because I feel like your circle of friends is your networking circle almost.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like your best boys, like best friends. but it's like there's a group of people that you can turn to when you have ideas / questions.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, I used to not believe in the saying, you know, show me your closest friends, I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
Until I got into entrepreneurship. And I realized, like, the closer I was to basically just, like, non-productive people, like people that didn't have the same ambition, the same drive, the closer I was with them, the less I got done. It's ultimately, like, me and my best friend, like, we've always been close. I'm not going to say we got close because of, like, business, but we give each other that, like, constant, like, push and that, like, constant, like, reminder that, like, hey, ultimately you're not special. Like, there are other people that are working hard to do the exact same thing. So it's your choice. Like, if you really want to accomplish the things you want to accomplish, like, you have to keep going. It's not negotiable.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why, like, totally off track, my favorite athlete is Derek Jeter.
Okay.
And, like, that's like his famous quote. Is like,
I heard that from Kobe.
No, not that. Not what you just said.
Okay.
That's Kobe's quote.
Yeah,
so I can't take that from Kobe. I can't do that. But Derek Jeter has a quote where it's like, you know, there's always going to be people who are better than me, and I accept that. But there's zero excuse for there to be anyone that's working harder than me. So it's like having that mindset of just no one is going to outwork me is kind of what, you know, led me and him to, like, get so close and me to continue to build out that circle. But anyways, back to your question. I think step one is realizing that you're in the wrong circle, because sometimes it's not your choice. Like, sometimes you just end up there. It's like you can't tell the future. You can't realize that doing XYZ is going to lead you to where you are today. But having that realization that, okay, you're in a spot that you don't want to be in, identifying where you want to be, and then taking those initial steps toward getting there. Like, when I was playing baseball, toward the end of my career, I realized I didn't want to be playing baseball anymore. And I wanted to potentially pursue entrepreneurship. So I basically looked at the circle I was in at that moment, which was college athlete. And I looked at the circle I wanted to be at, which was, you know, being a founder, essentially, and identified what I needed to do, which for me was transferring to the best academic school I could in Florida, which is UF. And then just plugging myself into ecosystems, because, like I said, people want to help you. Like, it's in our nature to want to help other people. So ultimately, you don't even need to have the first step figured out. You can find someone that's done what you want to do and just reach out to them and just be super, you know, upfront and honest. You know, obviously, some people are going to provide better advice than others. I've definitely gotten bad advice. But super upfront and honest, like, hey, this is where I'm at right now, but this is where I want to be. You know, what did you do to break into this industry, right? Like, if it's, I don't know, a fitness influencer, right? This is where I'm at. You know, I want to be a fitness influencer too. How did you grow? Like, how did you build your following? How did you take those initial steps? So sometimes you don't need to know how to get out of that circle. You just need to have the confidence to take that first step and reach out to people who are in that circle. Because a lot of the times, they may not even give you advice. They may connect you to other people. They may be like, oh, this is what I did, but, you know, Josh may be able to give you better insight.
Yeah.
Like, let me connect you with him. Because you're automatically going to have a little bit of respect from them because you took that step one and reach out to them.
Yeah.
So they know that you're ambitious. Like, they know that ultimately you're not just wasting their time. So they may want to take that additional step. I've had plenty of people connect me to other people after I cold reached out to them.
Yeah.
So did that fully answer your question?
No, it did. It did. Because, like you said, so I guess to answer it in a nutshell, it doesn't matter what your circle is right now. It matters more about your mindset and your confidence.
Totally.
Okay.
It matters, like, it doesn't matter what your circle is right now. I don't think there's any situation that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
Unless you commit some, like, insane crime and you're in jail, it's like, all right, then no one can help you, bro. Like,
how do you think people gain the confidence to cold call or to cold text or just approach someone who they see has more value than them, but they want to learn? Do you think it's just having to do it, or is there like a mindset trick that you think of?
You know, when I do anything in life, first of all, my biggest fear in life is having regrets. I know that whatever I do, and when the time comes for, you know, my journey to end, I want to be able to sit there and be like, cool, I regret absolutely nothing I did, and there isn't anything I wish I did. So I live life with the mindset of having regrets is way scarier than failures. So for me, there's nothing that I wouldn't do that I think I could potentially regret not doing. But generally, like, it's just something you got to do. It's like, you can't, you know, if you have a Band-Aid on your arm, you can't just like individually peel it off. Like, it hurts more.
Yeah.
You just got to rip it off. So you've just got to have, because ultimately, you can't expect other people to be confident in you if you're not confident in yourself. So you've got to be confident enough in yourself that you can take that initial step. Like, that's kind of just it. Like, no one is going to do anything for you.
Yeah.
So my recommendation, though, to people who, you know, could be a little intimidated, could be a little scared, may not have that confidence, is ask yourself, what's the worst possible thing that could happen? And what's the best possible thing that could happen? And most of the times, the difference between the two is going to be so drastic that if you don't do it, it's like it doesn't make sense not to, right?
Yeah.
For example, a cold message. The worst possible thing that could probably happen is
no response.
That's not the worst. Like, the worst possible thing is someone probably tells you you're a piece of shit and blocks you.
Okay.
But the best possible thing that happens is, say you're reaching out to a recruiter. They're just like, yeah, actually, we're looking to hire someone with your skill set right now. Let's hop on a call because I think you'd be a good fit. It's like that positive of getting an internship, getting an intro, getting whatever, outweighs that negative of just like a no response, an ignore, a bad response. Like, you just have to do it.
Yeah. I heard this one thing a couple of days ago where it was like psychiatrists/psychologists found that 85% of the problems that people think or like they're scared of happening never actually happen in life.
Yeah.
And it's like, I correlate problems and fears together, where it's like 85% of the fears that you have of happening won't actually happen.
Right.
And I guess to loop back to what we said, it's like people want to help. Yes, you have to provide some sort of value, and that's where I would encourage people to just like sit down with yourself for like 5-10 minutes, at the end of the day, and just like think like, what do I bring to the table?
Right.
What do I have to bring to a job, a relationship, whatever it may be, and I guarantee you're gonna find things. And even if you can't find things, maybe that's like a sign to invest in yourself a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
go get a book and start reading and like learning. Go maybe hit the gym. Go find a passion slash a skill. Find a skill that you're passionate about and dive into that and just lock in for like 6 months. You know that one like TikTok sound where it's like, "Dear me in 6 months,
Yeah.
you're gonna thank me," or like,
Yeah.
I want to make you proud." It's like, dude, like, yeah, 6 months sounds like a lot, but then if you look in the grand scheme of things, imagine like those 6 months set up the next 10 to 20 years of your life.
Yeah.
It's like a fraction. It's like at that point, it's like, it's not like, it's an easy yes.
Yeah. No,
So,
I definitely agree. And you could sit down and even realize like you don't necessarily have those skills. And to your point, I think the first step in like developing them is, I think it'd be a much more productive like brainstorming session if you think about what you're interested in. Because when you think about what you're interested in, you're just naturally going to get like a little bit excited about thinking, all right, how can I do that? And then from there, just identify like what type of skills you think you would need to be good at, and see, where your skills, personal skills, necessarily align. If they don't at all, then it could be like one of two things. Either one, you have learning to do, or two, your passions may not lie, where they actually are. Like me starting as a bio major, wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon, I initially thought that's where my passions were. But zero of my skill sets lined up to that. Like, absolutely none of them. Like, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't like a lot of the things that go into being a doctor. Just the idea sounded interesting to me. So that's kind of an example of sitting down, thinking about what I'm passionate about, thinking about what I'm skilled at, realizing the two have zero overlap. And then it was just thinking, all right, am I really passionate about this?
yeah.
Or is there potentially another path that I'm just not seeing?
And I also want to say, no one's going to start out perfect.
Right.
Like, you're not going to start out where you're going to have all the skills. That's just not possible. But then I also feel like that's the whole point of the journey, where you're going to learn so much throughout the journey. Because yes, the destination is going to be nice, but like they say, the journey is a lot more valuable than the destination.
Yeah.
And back to what I said, the lessons that you think you're going to learn may not be the lessons that you actually learn. And sometimes the lessons that you do learn are 10 times better than the lessons that you wanted to learn in the beginning. What do you think is the importance of failure?
I mean, failure is everything, right? Like, ultimately, failure shows you a couple things. It shows you what you need to continue to improve on. It shows you what changes you may need to make. And it shows you where you're really at in life. I think having the ability to accept failure and learn from failure is one of the most important skills if you want to be successful at anything in life. If you can't accept your failures and find a way to learn from them, then there's just absolutely zero chance that you as an individual are going to improve in anything, because you're not going to make any changes. Like, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, like, that is the definition of being insane.
Yeah.
So if you're not able to look at your failures, learn, and change what you're doing, you're not going to grow as an individual.
Why do you think people are so scared of failure? I have my own opinion, but I'll go after you.
Yeah. That's a really good question, like really, really good question, because it's different for everyone. But ultimately, people don't like being bad at something. Like, they're scared. I think it's less of the fact people are scared of fear, and it's more of the fact people are scared of the thought of failure. Like you're scared of the embarrassment that you could put within yourself for failing. You're like, I'm dumb. Why did I do that? Like, why did that not work? I have to be dumb. So I think it's more of people are scared of like the mental implications that come alongside failure rather than failure itself.
Yeah. I agree to what you're saying. I think from such a young age, and this goes back to the school system, where it's like you have the grading scale, and if you're doing well in the class, you have an A. If you're not doing so well, you have an F. And the issue is that F affects you every single year that you move on, because if you fail one class, then you can't move on to the next class, and everyone thinks you're dumb. Your parents get mad at you.
Yeah.
You're like, what's your problem? And at the end of the day, it's literally just a letter.
Yeah.
You become defined by a letter so much.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, from such a young age, that becomes innate in who we are. And we tend to grow to where I don't want to be defined by failure. But it sucks because, like you said, in life, you need that failure to become a better person.
Yeah.
You're not going to progress. You're not going to learn more knowledge, more lessons if you do not fail.
Yeah.
That failure is going to shoot you through the roof, because you try one thing one time and it doesn't work out. Yes, it didn't work out, but you learned what didn't work out. Now you have other options to try. And another thing, like you were saying, people are scared of the embarrassment that they get and how they look towards others. I want to say from my experience, and I've had many people tell me this too, the ones that judge you based off of your failures are usually the ones that are too scared to actually take that step.
For sure.
Because the ones that made it to the top, they've gone through failures.
Yeah.
There's not a single person at the top that did not fail. And because they have failed, because they know what the journey is like, because they understand the challenges that they've faced, they're going to understand that you're going to fail. So typically they're the ones that are going to push you to keep going, because they understand that failure is a necessary part to becoming successful, not an embarrassment. On the other side, the people who are too scared to do it, they see failure as a bad thing. And so therefore, when they see you failing, they're going to make fun of you, or they're going to like bring you down or whatever. And the reason they do that is because they're like subconsciously afraid of seeing you succeed in something that they're too scared to do.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. You know, like we live in a society, especially in like the United States now, where people care a lot about how other people view them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, social media plays a huge role in that. I remember reading actually in like, I think this was from like 2020, but a study was done where they interviewed not interviewed because it was like elementary school kids, but they asked like 5,000 elementary school kids what they wanted to be when they grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was like 94, 95% of them said they wanted to be influencers, which is crazy. Like crazy. But in today's world, especially because like the prevalence of social media, people really do care about, you know, what other people think about them.
Mm-hmm.
So part of what I was talking about, like with those mental implications that come alongside failure, it's like they're scared of the thought of people looking at them as lesser people for failing. So that, you know, just like build on like those points a little bit, you know, I completely agree with pretty much everything you said. But it's, you know, a lot of the time people aren't able to take that first step because of that fear of failure. And that fear of failure stems from they don't want people to look at them as, you know, lesser, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of the time people are scared to make that, like reach out on LinkedIn and stuff like that, because they're scared of the recruiter being like, oh, this kid's a loser. Like, why would I respond?
And the thing is, no one's ever like that.
No.
Because they already made it.
No. And if they are, then who cares? Like,
exactly,
it's literally,
who cares?
It's like this, the world is so digital now. You could just take endless shots, and it doesn't matter if like majority of them fail, because, you know, a lot of the people that you're even like shooting those shots at, you're never going to see in real life. So it's like, if it fails, you're not going to see them in real life. So it's like, why wouldn't you take the risk of bettering yourself, you know, for that potential like slight trade-off?
All you need is one shot to go in.
That's it.
Because once that one shot goes in, you completely forget about everything else that has happened. I feel like a lot of people nowadays are scared of change.
Yeah.
And that is why they're afraid of failing, because they're kind of almost comfortable where they're at.
Yeah.
Because 95% of the people that actually like do that or pursue that change are usually the ones that are uncomfortable in their environment, that they need to get out of that environment. They need to make it work. But usually the ones that are comfortable, like I said in the last episode, someone who wants to do something versus someone who needs to do something, it's going to be a drastic difference between the two of them.
Yeah. One of the biggest negatives in innovation, and pretty much, in my opinion, anything related to the world right now, is being comfortable. I think if you're comfortable, especially like at a younger age, you're not in the right spot. You know, like if you're 50, 60, 70 years old, you've already done X, Y, Z, you know, you're retired. It's okay, like if you're a little comfortable, right? But I think especially right now in life, like right now is in where you and I are at, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not pursuing as many opportunities as you could be. Like being comfortable ultimately kills creativity. Because there's no need for creativity because you're comfortable. It's like people come to school, they go through their degree aimlessly for 4 years. Maybe they go to grad school, depending on what they do, or they go get a job and their job pays for an MBA, whatever. They get comfortable. They stay in that corporate world until they're 50, 60 years old, and then they retire and they're still comfortable. There's never a point where they're actually stretching their abilities because they're always working within their skill sets. Like they're never taking those leaps or those strides to potentially try something new, to potentially innovate something new. Like I remember another study I read about creativity. There was a point where I was just like super interested in how the human brain worked and like how we made decisions. It was over like COVID, and I just like from like 1 a.m. to like 6 a.m. just went on like an endless like YouTube search. But there was a study I was reading about where they asked 100 kids and 100 adults that worked in corporate America. They gave them a cloud. Like they put a cloud in front of them. And they just asked them like, what do you see? 99 point, like, I think it was 8% of the adults. Sorry, it was more than 100. I think it might have been like 300 or 400, but 99.8% of the adults said, I see a cloud. Whereas almost pretty much the same percentage flipped to the kids were like, oh, I see a lion on a surfboard. Like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're stretching that like creativity, and ultimately we're all born with creativity, but we lose it when we get comfortable. So like as you go through life and you get comfortable and you start to conform to your environments, you start to lose that ability to stretch your brain and like stretch your passions and interests like as far as they can go. That was like a little bit of a tangent, but I don't know. I thought it was.
No. I liked it, and I wanted to point out, comfortability does not mean satisfaction.
Right.
Because the corporate world, 98% of people in the corporate world don't like their job.
Yeah.
But they're comfortable because they're their bills are being paid, they're comfortable financially. And I feel like that's like the number one key factor that pushes people in like today's society is money, where it's, if you're comfortable financially, even if you're not satisfied, you're going to stick with it. But if you're not comfortable financially, even if you are satisfied, you might not stick with it.
Right.
And so that's, I guess, where my biggest fear comes from, because I am afraid of doing something that I don't like for the rest of my life, but sticking with it just because my basic needs are met. My basic needs are met. And so, like I said, that is literally one of my biggest fears. And that is why, like you also said, right now is like the best time to just stay uncomfortable with every possible thing. Obviously, don't stretch yourself too thin, because I feel like it gets to a certain point where your productivity, if you stretch it so thin, you're not really going to accomplish anything.
Totally. Yeah.
So I feel like that's where you got to find the right balance. And how did you find that balance? What is like the balance that you found between, because obviously you have school, you have your business, you have your social life. How did you find the balance to basically just have a well-balanced life?
Yeah. You know, a couple points you hit on. Like, one, not wanting to stretch yourself too thin. Like, a jack of all trades is a master at nothing. So that's where, you know, your passions and interests come into play, because you want to identify like what you're interested in, what you're good at, and then just get really good at it. Like, get it to the point where if anyone thinks about, like, for example, gym content, like this is, you know, the easiest one-for-one example. If anyone thinks about gym content, you know, Chris Khalil is who they think about, right? Like, it's like getting to that point where you become like the master of whatever you're doing, I think is super crucial. But to answer your question, I think balance is figurative for everyone. I am very used to the grindy schedule of being an athlete. So like my day-to-day at the college I used to play baseball at was wake up at 5 a.m. for lifts, 5:30 lifts, lift until 7:30, go eat breakfast, class started at 9, pretty much doing class until 1, had to be at the field by 2, at the field by 2, practice until somewhere between 7 and 8, depending on the day, depending on how we played the weekend before. And then from there, going to get dinner, finish dinner like 9, and then it's like, I've got 2 hours to get as much done if I want to get 6 hours of sleep. So I'm very accustomed to like schedules like that. That's actually the schedule like that makes me feel the most productive. So ultimately, finding your balance is finding the schedule that makes you the most productive. And then finding out, all right, like in that time span, how much of a bandwidth how much time do I have to work on specific projects, and then allocating that time. So you kind of find that balance by listening to yourself. You know, like if you start to feel burned out, take a couple steps back on, you know, maybe schoolwork, like take some time to yourself. It's why I think things like the gym are like so important, because the gym especially, it gives me like an outlet of like stress relief and like helps me maintain like that positive like mental. I think things like that are almost like just as important in your day-to-day as productive stuff like schoolwork, you know, working on like business development. So how I manage it is like honestly not the healthiest way, because my schedule is like crazy and I just accept it's crazy and I keep rolling. But I would say, you know, for people that are trying to find that schedule, listen to yourself, listen to your mental health as you're, doing whatever. Because if you sense, like, ultimately, if you're taking on too much, your productivity is going to go down. Like, you're not going to be as productive as you were before. So finding out, like, what lets you work the most optimally, kind of like things like that.
Yeah.
But as far as how I balance everything, I don't know. I just figure it out. Like, I have the mindset of, I can get anything done.
Yeah.
So I just figure out a way to get it done.
So do you tend to plan your day/week, or is it more of you wake up and you're like, okay, I have these things to get done today, go?
So there definitely needs to be some planning involved.
Okay.
I actually hate planning my day out, like, hour by hour, because I know some people love it, and, like, there's definitely room to do it. Don't get me wrong.
I used to be like that.
Yeah.
And then I quickly realized that it didn't work for me.
I feel like it makes me less productive.
Yeah.
There's specific things I'll obviously have to do in specific time frames. So I'll plan out, like, meetings, obviously, like, classes.
Right.
Like, typically when I come to the gym, just because, like, I work out with someone.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I work on stuff based off, like, how productive I feel like I can be in these specific things. Like, if I'm working on schoolwork and I'm rolling and I'm getting a lot of stuff done, why would I pause that just because, like, it's 4:00 and I have it listed on my schedule that now I need to do X, Y, Z. Like, I'm going to keep rolling and ride that high and eventually realize I need to pivot to something else.
Right.
So I have, like, a little structure throughout my days and weeks, but not a
rigid schedule.
not anything that's, like, 1 for 1, like 1 to 2 I'm doing homework, 2 to 3 I'm eating lunch, 3 to 4 doing whatever. So yeah.
And I mean, I'm the same way because, like he said, my high school schedule sounded very similar to your college baseball schedule.
Yeah.
So I have developed that go mindset / I guess work ethic, and like he said, it's not the healthiest.
Nah.
And so especially if someone's, like, listening / watching who isn't go all the time, the last thing you want to do is flip that 180 degrees and go from chillant to go, because even if your productivity spikes up, it's going to come right back down so quick.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's where the little changes become the most important.
Yeah.
And so I guess for someone who is that person who's trying to change, start out by the small changes being, look at your week and set aside certain tasks for certain days. You don't have to schedule it from time to time. If that works for you, great. I know for me personally, that does not work. So let's say, like, on Monday, I gotta do this assignment, do this project, get a workout in, and meal prep. I don't know. I usually meal prep on Sundays. But just the fact that you have a list of things to get done on that day, you kind of already have it in the back of your head. Okay, like, I know what I'm doing today somewhat. And that's what works for me. Like, I'll wake up, like today I woke up, I don't have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I woke up, obviously I had a time set for the podcast episode.
Right.
But yeah, please, like if it's a meeting, you got to have a time set for that.
Right, yeah, for sure.
I know I have certain work that needs to get done for school. I know I have editing that's going to need to be done, and I have to get a workout in. What time or, like, how long that takes, don't really know. Like JJ said, if you have that, like, high of work just flowing smoothly, ride it out, bro.
Yeah.
I don't get those highs that often anymore. So whenever I do, I'm like, I'm taking full advantage of that. Like, Sunday, I was in the library till 12:30 a.m. because I had one of those highs.
Was on one. Yeah.
I went from 7 to 12:30, and I was like, I'm going until I burn out.
That's different.
So just make those small changes one step at a time. Don't take a giant leap, because 9 out of 10 times that leap is you're gonna take that step right back, and you might even go even further back. if
Yeah.
you go too big.
Yeah, I will also say though, because I want to be like realistic with stuff. I think that an immense amount of success and a regular schedule do not correlate. Like if you are waking up 10 o'clock, going to your classes, doing your homework, grabbing like lunch, dinner with friends every single day, staying up, watching a movie, just a bunch of like unproductive stuff that may be productive to, certain people. Ultimately, like that output is going to show.
Yeah.
So I think it also is important to set like a realistic expectation of if you are doing average things and you have an average schedule, you are going to have an average output. If you are doing a crazy amount of things, like most of the founders of the insane companies today, their day-to-day lives at the start were the definition of like unhealthy. So crazy things lead to crazy results.
Oh yeah.
Average things lead to average results. Ultimately, it just comes down to how you want to spend your time. Because like I said it before, right? If I'll use Airbnb as an example, just because like that was one of the first success stories I really dove into. If Brian Chesky, which is the founder of Airbnb, if he didn't found Airbnb, someone else would have.
Oh, yes.
Like at some point, someone would have come along and filled that gap in the market. It's impossible that it would have never happened. So it ultimately comes down to what are you doing and what do you truly want to do? Because if you're not willing to take those steps, someone else is. Like, someone else is going to be willing to put in that grind and that effort.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, don't sit here and think, like, oh, yeah, while I'm in school, I can sit around, do nothing, and I can start working hard once I'm out of school. Because there's already people that are putting themselves leaps and bounds ahead of you. So I do want to set that realistic expectation because, while we're saying our schedules are crazy and you don't have to follow it, like, if you want to be super successful in life, like, you have to adapt somewhat of a high productive schedule.
Right.
So,
and what I was saying wasn't for someone who wants to slack off. Because if you're slacking off, there's no productivity in that. So that just goes against the whole point. My point was more of there's a goal in mind that you have, but you don't know how to get there. And you want to be productive towards that goal, but you also have so much going on. That's where the scheduling comes in, where it's take one step at a time, working towards that goal instead of just taking a giant leap towards that goal, because you need those small steps in the beginning as a foundation to build up towards that goal.
right.
Obviously, it's going to take a really hard work ethic to be able to get to that goal. And some people are going to look at you crazy and they're going to be like, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. But it's like we said before, who cares? Just keep going at what you're doing. And if you keep going, it will work out.
Yeah.
JJ, this has been a great pleasure. To end things off, I want to ask you one question.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's watching, who's in our age, if that's the only piece of advice you could give them?
Yeah. If there's one piece of advice I would give people, it's to start building your network. Start sending those messages on LinkedIn, start connecting with new people, start going up and talking to new people. Like, if there's one thing that has never hurt me, it's been networking. So I think, if you don't know where to start, talk to someone. If you know where you want to start, talk to someone. Like if you're trying to do something specific, talk to someone. Like talking to someone is never going to hurt you because ultimately it's your choice whether you do or don't listen to the advice that they give you. So if there's one piece of advice I would give, it's network, especially now. So
it's like the saying in the world, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, I mean, knowledge, like the knowledge you get from networking is going to provide an immense amount of value, but then also as you network with people, you gain access to their networks. Like they're going to be like Luke is a perfect example. You know, you and I started talking more and like I made that intro.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes you never know who someone else knows. Like even if you think they're going to provide zero value to you, still talk to them because at the end of the day,
you never know.
Like you don't know who they have access to.
Yep.
So
and I learned that, and through Luke, I've met more people that have taught me more things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
network.
On that note, I appreciate y'all for watching. That's wraps.